Hello, film fans. Welcome to the Film vs. Film podcast. My name is Martin Harries, your host, and I'm joined by the film encyclopedia man, Boaz Dix. We are a couple of filmmakers on occasion, but mainly can't stop yapping about movies. On this podcast, every episode we pick a topic from a film that's coming out at the cinema or on VOD. Myself and Boaz pick our favourite film from that topic, and we battle it out to decide which film will become the greatest film of all time, according to two film geeks from Wiltshire, England. If you enjoy this podcast, please leave us a review and subscribe. Hello, Podsters. Welcome to the Film vs. Film podcast once again. As Top Gun Maverick is out, I'm very excited for this one, I must say. We'll be talking Tom Cruise films. Unfortunately, no guest this week. Couldn't make it happen, but don't worry. I found someone off the street who was shouting, "Penis! Penis!" So I just brought Boaz Dix on. He'll do, that'll do.
Yeah, that's how I got my last name.
To join me.
Got my last name Dix because I just love talking about penises. That is not a fact, by the way. That is not a fact.
Or is it?
No. I'm from a proud long line of Dixes.
How are you, all right?
Yeah, I'm doing all right.
Cool. You excited for Top Gun Maverick then?
Not really, because I know absolutely sweet fuck all about Top Gun. Yeah,
Really?
no, like, I know of it in the fact that it's referenced constantly. I also know of it because so many people, like, you get recommended so many fucking movies. I do get recommended Top Gun. So people are like, you should watch Top Gun. I'm like, yeah, I'll get around to it. But I've said that. I've got, it's on the back of the pile. Like, I've got millions of things I should get onto. Yeah, I don't know. I've just never...
You never felt the need
the need for speed. I know that quote. Yeah. That's very famous. But no, like I know very little about Top Gun. And I knew this film was coming out, Maverick. And yeah, I guess because I don't have the connection to it, so I should watch it, as with many things, I should watch it. But I've never, it's never been on TV. I've never had anybody to watch it with or any reason to watch it. But if we're going to go see this film, because I probably wouldn't watch it unless somebody's going to take me to watch it.
Yeah,
I might do my research, obviously, before I watch it. So and watch the previous one. But
it definitely looks very different, actually, because as Tom Cruise is basically a nutter now and does everything for real.
That trailer look. I will say that though, because we watched the trailer in the cinema with Doctor Strange 2. The trailer did look good. Like, all of the clips with them flying, you're like, I was getting G's just watching that for a couple of seconds. And I was like, this is intense. It does look like he's really in a fighter plane.
Yeah. And
I wouldn't be surprised with Tom Cruise if he is actually in a fight.
Yeah, he did. He flew it for real.
Yeah, if he is actually for real in a fighter plane. Definitely looks real.
Yeah. And they put IMAX cameras all around the cockpit and
That's
stuff.
crazy.
It was just like, this is insane. Apparently, I read recently that there's like over 800 hours of like flight footage for this
That's
film.
crazy.
not obviously in the movie,
Yeah.
That's insane, but just
That would be nuts. Yeah.
of raw footage.
They should do a director's cut.
Otherwise you'll be in the cinema for like months and months.
That'd be crazy, right? Actually, have you ever tried to find out what the record is for the longest movie? Yeah, I think there is a movie that it's like a month of raw footage or something, and they just... But obviously not like worldwide, but I think it was just in one theater. You could just watch it.
Yeah.
But that sounds so fucking silly.
Do they literally just forget to hire an editor?
Yeah.
Like, we don't need an editor. Just stick it all together. That's fine.
I think it was kind of, it's one of those ones where you're trying. It's not like they're trying to make a Guinness Book of World Records. It's not something that comes naturally. I think they just literally just put a camera somewhere and just recorded a bunch of crap. I don't think there's a plot that lasts a month long. That would be an achievement. I think that would be an incredible achievement if you had a plot that, you had to watch it every day, every hour for like a month to understand everything. I mean, that would be...
Well, they're called TV shows.
Yeah, they're called TV shows. Yeah, that's true. That is true. Shit, somebody beat us to that idea.
Damn it, we had a great idea.
God damn it.
TFB's going on for 70 years or whatever. 70 years too late.
I think they should do that on theatre, because, like, what was it? The Simpsons has been going on forever now, like 30 years or something. Yeah. Just do every episode, but on a cinema screen. Just literally every episode of The Simpsons. Yeah. I think they should do that.
Anyway, let's get back to the podcast. What are we talking about? Tom Cruise. That's the one. This podcast about Tom Cruise.
No, we were talking about Homer Simpson, The Simpsons. I think that was it. Yeah. The Simpsons movie.
I find Tom Cruise just a really fascinating actor now. For me, I think he's like a better stuntman and producer than an actual actor now. He's that like insane.
Yeah,
I think is the word. But so for Tom Cruise films, I was very sure on what I was picking. I was going to pick Mission Impossible Fallout because, as I just said, the stuff he does in that is quite remarkable. It's corkscrewing down a cliff face with flying a helicopter. I mean, that's just nuts. Any other filmmaker would do that with CGI.
Yeah. And also, what was it? Fallout, didn't that have the where Henry Cavill is like unconscious and he also skydives to save him, and like that was real. They actually skydived, and that looked really cool.
A hell of a lot of jumps to get that one shot right. But I was like, yeah, okay, I'm probably going to pick Fallout, but then I'll just check his IMDb list just in case. And then I saw Collateral. I was like, oh yeah, that's really cool. I love that film. So I kind of changed my mind last minute. I'm like, yeah, I'll go for Collateral actually. And maybe we'll do like a Mission Impossible episode down the line.
I think that would be cool. I think each of us pick a Mission Impossible film. Mission Impossible is one of those ones, like, when I watched Fallout, I kind of realized that I actually really like this series, but it's, I'm not like first in line to a mission. I don't like cosplay as, his character Ethan or anything like that. Ethan Hunt. But I just kind of realized I actually like all of these films. Like even the one we were discussing, the much chastised Mission Impossible 2. I actually really that was one of my favorite films when I was a kid. I was like, this is amazing. So I've actually always liked them. So I could have easily picked a Mission Impossible film, but I thought, you're going for something more dramatic, so I'll go for one of his drama films as well.
Depressing again.
Very depressing. Yeah, war themed and fucking depressing. Yeah. I think I'm just trying to beat you with depression. Like, obviously, the sadder the film is,
you just want to make me miserable.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, what did you make of Collateral then?
Yeah. What's kind of strange is I haven't watched this film in a very long time. I think I watched it once a long time ago, and I will tell you actually, watching it again, because when you mentioned Collateral, I was like, really? Because in my memory, I thought that film was like it was okay, but I couldn't really remember too much about it. I was like, yeah, Tom Cruise was a bad guy, but that's all I kind of remember. I remember Jamie Foxx in it and stuff. And I didn't really think it was that special. On a rewatch, it's actually a lot better than I remembered, which is good to know. So I was pleasantly surprised about that.
Yeah, it's pretty old now. Yeah, 2004. Yeah, I really like this film. There's certainly rewatching it. I'm getting a few more issues, but certainly I'm a bit like the opposite. The first time I watched it, this is so good. But looking at it closely, some bits like... But why I like this one so much is that this is a Tom Cruise performance where he is the antagonist. He is the villain here. I'm like, when do you see a film where he is a villain? And I think this...
Documentaries about Scientology.
Yeah. But certainly a period in his career where people were trying to like de-cruise Tom Cruise, if you know what I mean. Like Spielberg kind of did the same thing with War of the Worlds, just making him just like a normal human being and not like an incredible character, an incredible action character, certainly in the Mission Impossible films that we've just briefly talked about. So what happens in Collateral? Well, a cab driver played by Jamie Foxx, Max, who's basically driving a cab for temporary reasons to create a business, further down the line, like Island Limos, a luxury limo business. But obviously he's just cabbing to earn enough money, but it's a bit of a pipe dream for him. But then he finds himself hostage from this contract killer played by Tom Cruise. He plays Vincent. Max takes Vincent around LA to help him on all these hits in one night in LA. He's basically manipulating him the whole time, but it kind of like backfires as well on Vincent in the end. I just love these kind of type of thrillers that, the world is not at stake. It's just one guy and one woman as well is at stake, and that's it. There's no other stakes really. It's just a really nice taut.
Nice and vegetarian.
Almost like neo-noir character.
No stakes whatsoever.
Well,
low stakes.
but it's just very a personal
Yeah,
film and just not many characters at all. I just love these type of
Hmm.
movies. So directing, then, I love how the first kill is done. Like, Max parks down an alleyway and Vincent is just walking around the apartment. Max is looking, at car magazines, listening to nice soft music, cut to Tom Cruise with like no music. Then all of a sudden the camera is falling down onto the cab. Then boom, a dead guy lands on the windshield and there's no suspense building at all. It's just boom, dead guy. You're like, whoa, okay, this is, we're in the movie now.
Well, I think it definitely makes you feel like Jamie Foxx. It was just like, where the fuck did that come from? Literally just dropped this guy off. I do like how it shoots it, where he's kind of walking menacingly through the hole, but you don't see the altercation. It's, again, just Jamie Foxx just chilling, like looking through his sandwiches, looking through his bag and stuff, goes out for a cigarette, and bang, it just, just what the hell happened? Yeah, that's where you learn Tom Cruise is a fucking nut job.
Yeah. I love the last few scenes where Max is on the phone to Annie and Vincent is going after her. You get this very, like, concrete jungle type feel, especially in this scene. I love the whole cat and mouse stuff in the dark when Vincent cuts the power, and there's a brilliant shot where all you see is Annie's silhouette as she's running through the building, but in the background you can see Vincent walking slowly behind this frosted glass. There are some shots that you can barely see anything apart from the street lights through the windows, and it just makes it feel very realistic. If the characters can barely see anything, the audience will barely see anything. So I kind of like that commitment in the cinematography there, where in that scene, like, it's just so dark and it does feel a tad scary at times in those scenes.
When you're talking about it being low stakes plot wise, and you've got the kind of camera work that would happen a lot during many scenes when the camera's following people or it's hiding or doing many other things, where it just kind of becomes almost handheld cam, where you're like, it is moving a little and it's a little, it's kind of like a sort of professional amateurism, amateurish. There's some great camera work and there's some great acting and there's, obviously some money spent on this. So it's like a really expensive independent film.
I wouldn't say it felt expensive, because this is certainly in an era where, like, people were starting off using digital cameras in 2004. They use specialist lenses to capture all the nice stuff on digital. And like the cinematography certainly in those really dark rooms were really good, but some of the cab driver stuff didn't look great to me. Like, you can really feel the digitalness of it, and it just didn't look right, if you know what I mean. It was a bit off-putting at times, the cinematography. And sometimes, literally, like, Jamie Foxx and Tom Cruise just look like they've got gonorrhea. They don't look well with the lighting, Did you get that? Or
what, that he looks kind of yellow?
Yeah, they're just not lit very well. I don't know if that's just part of the neo aesthetic they were kind of going for, but I don't know. It didn't feel particularly realistic to me.
I think it might just be part of the aesthetic. I don't know. Like, I don't think that ever bothered me. I don't think I really paid note on that.
I know I do like films that are shot on film.
Yeah, you're a film. Yeah, you're a film purist. Yeah, that I don't know. That is never like stood out to me. The difference between film and digital.
I don't see any reason why this couldn't be shot on film. I know you've got to have more lights and stuff, but come on, people. Some of these shots don't look great. I'm sorry. I'm not saying the whole film. There's just some shots, like, they look like they need to stop to go for a shit right now.
Maybe they did. Don't know.
Yeah.
There are a lot of shots that feel kind of more handheld. I think sometimes that was quite distracting for me, actually. I didn't mind it so much in the kind of chase, the scene in the office and stuff. But there were sometimes it would just occur, especially when they're like driving or talking, where I'm like, it's a bit odd. Just keep it still. I don't know. So
okay,
yeah.
I like the chase and the cat and mouse stuff on the train at the end. There's that really clever standoff when the train comes into the station. And Vincent is standing on the platform waiting to shoot Max and Annie. Max is like, do I get off or do I not? At the end, I love how quiet Tom Cruise's death is as well. You know, no bells and whistles at all. It's all like Vincent has finally been consumed by the city kind of thing. One of the quietest deaths I've seen, really. It's quite an interesting death scene, that.
I don't know. I think for me, I think the death was it was okay. Maybe expected a little more.
I quite liked it because it went well with Tom Cruise's, philosophy in this whole thing that we're just a speck in terms of the universe.
Yeah, true.
And he says, like, do you reckon anyone will notice me dying on this train?
Yeah. And then he just dies. Yeah.
So it definitely fits with his character. But I must say, though, there is a bit of a mistake in the film, which is quite noticeable when Mark Ruffalo's character is looking at the dead bodies in the morgue. One of the dead bodies breathes. You can definitely see him breathing.
Yeah, you got a good eye. I didn't see that.
I can't believe they didn't notice that.
Yeah. I kind of had to rewind a bit when Mark Ruffalo died. I wish that was kind of set up better. Like it took more note of it, because I sort of, as he was coming out of the club with Jamie, and then Tom shoots him. It's just how it was set up. It's the camera's more focusing on Tom shooting him, and then he's just kind of dead. And I was very confused for a bit as to who was shot and who just got killed.
I think you're supposed to feel like that, for me.
I was really confused for a minute, and then it was only like when Jamie got in the car and he was like, "You shot him," and he's like, "Who?" And he's like, "This whatever, Mark Ruffalo's character's name, the cop." And I was like, "Oh shit, okay, fair enough. That was the cop that got shot." But I didn't think it was set up smoothly enough that I actually understood what the fuck was going on, until it already happened.
Well, my favorite scene is in the nightclub scene where you have Vincent and Max going after the Asian guy, and the FBI and Mark Ruffalo's character, this detective, are all going after Vincent, all in this very compact nightclub, and I thought it was directed so well.
Yeah, and what's his face's guys? Because it was like the FBI, that guy's security, and Mark Ruffalo, and who's that other fucker? Javier Bardem. His people were also trailing. So it was a very confusing shootout, because there was a lot of people just shooting at each other, and like everybody was shooting at each other. You're like, are you with him? No, okay, shit, okay. Everybody's just killing one another. You're like, Jesus.
Well, I thought it was directed quite well.
I did like it, but I'm just saying, I thought the action scene was directed well, and it was especially cool, like seeing Tom Cruise's moves and stuff. But I'm just saying, like in the plot of the film, there are many sides trying to kill him.
But yeah, I thought it was directed really well with these long lenses picking out glimpses of the characters that we know, with hundreds of extras dancing in front of them. And it didn't take me long to see them properly through the crowd. I thought that was quite cleverly done. Like the little takedowns Cruise does was nice and brutal. I don't know. At times I didn't feel that lost in the action, in the geography of where people were. But I love the bluey look of the scene as well. It was very cool, that bit. And I just quite like it when nightclub scenes, when the music is really proper loud. And it's not like they have to bring the music down for the mix so dialogue and stuff can come through. I'm like, well, no, the loudest part of the scene is going to be the music if it's in a nightclub, Yeah, I just thought that scene was really cool and really well done.
Yeah. I'm going to think of some of the driving scenes, so that's kind of a strange one, but
yeah.
So you remember when actually I think the film's starting, and then it's doing large bird's eye views of the street. I thought those were cool. So you're seeing the cars, go across, LA, and just the camera just over the skyscrapers, just looking at the. That was pretty nice, just having a look at the city at night and just everything all small. Yeah, I don't know. I just quite like that. Also, another thing that I don't exactly know why it impacted me, and it was kind of strange when the film did it, but I thought it was kind of cool, is where they're having this conversation on, he thinks, I think he's talking about his father and stuff, and life doesn't matter. Why do you even care what I'm doing? Mm-hmm. And so Tom Cruise is being a bit vulnerable, especially the fact that at this point he's a mass serial killer. He's very evil, but he's being quite vulnerable here, and he's saying about his dad, and none of this shit matters. And he's either they're kind of also going into each other. Like, we're both kind of like wasting our lives or whatever. We're both sort of in the wrong. And then just kind of out of nowhere, there's like a dog that passes the car. They stop in the street.
It's like a wolf, isn't it, or something?
Yeah, and a wolf. And it's just like everything stops, and you just have this shot of this wolf. And I was like, what the hell's going on here? But I don't know. I quite liked it. And I was thinking there must be some sort of meaning behind that. It's one of those shots where I'm like, there must be like a thematic reason why that happened, because it felt important. And I think what I could get from it is maybe it was like, they see themselves as that kind of lone wolf. They don't have anybody or anything, and maybe it's just like they've got to fend for themselves. That's been their lives, and and they just get kind of. It feels like they get kind of emotional at this wolf. This wolf is crossing, and it's just his face, the other face, and you think, what the hell is going on? But I think it probably represented what was happening with them.
I think for me that scene was really interesting as well, because you're very much immersed in this concrete jungle type feel. There's nothing very natural in the landscape when you're watching this movie, and then when Max gets pulled over by the police because they say, "Oh, your windshield smashed," and he's like, "Oh yeah, it was a deer," and you're like, and they're like, "Nah, that didn't happen, dude." Open the trunk, and so that is very unbelievable. But then you see this wolf, and you're like, "Oh, that nature in this film, what?" When you're so consumed by all this concrete.
Yeah, exactly. When they're driving, it's just concrete. It's like shop sign over here, tire, window. Everything is very, manufactured. And it is quite surprising seeing a wolf.
And it's kind of like the film pauses for a bit, and it just becomes like a mood scene, a mood driving scene for a few minutes,
Yeah, it's just it's kind of weird because they're talking about all this stuff as soon as they see the wolf, and then it really quiets down even after the wolf is gone. It's like the camera's just following the cab and them and the cab and different shots of like the interior and exterior of the cab, and you're like they're very silent right now. I just thought it was kind of interesting.
Directing score, Boaz, what are you going for?
I think I'll go like a 7, maybe.
7?
Yeah.
Oh, bloody hell! What, straight 7?
Maybe 7.2.
Oh, bloody hell, Christ. Yeah, we are quite generous on this podcast, to be fair. Oh, 7? What? That's terrible.
Yeah, I know.
That's a good score.
I would consider like 7s to be like average to just slightly above average, and then like it starts to get good when you get past 7. That means really good.
Yeah, of course, this is directed by Michael Mann, who did Heat and many other movies. So this is very much up his alley, this kind of American concrete jungle story. I quite like that word, concrete jungle. Yeah, I would go a little higher. There are some really, really interesting scenes. But again, some of the digital stuff, it did bother me. I'm not as bothered by the handheld stuff, but it's actually the actual look of it sometimes.
Fair enough.
Where it did just look like a guy is using a camcorder. I'll go 7.6. Right, screenplay then. There's a really interesting scene where Vincent sticks up for Max when Lenny, the dispatch guy, calls, saying that he's just heard from the cops that he's damaged the cab and Max has to pay for it. And Vincent is about to leave for the next job, but Vincent intervenes and tells Max to call him an asshole. And Max later says, "And next time you pull any shit, I'm gonna have to stick this yellow cab up your fat ass." And it's really funny.
Yeah, that was funny.
But Vincent is recognizing that Lenny is screwing over Max, and Vincent's like, "Hang on, I know the law. You're out of line. Max has done nothing wrong," and sticks up for him. But at the same time, it's like Vincent's only doing this because he needs Max to take him to the right hits. What's interesting as well is the fact that he makes Max swear at Lenny, kind of making Max more confident so Vincent can make him do more things for him. Throughout the film, Vincent makes Max do more things, and Max even gains even more confidence, which actually backfires against Vincent at the end. Yeah, he's willing to shoot the guy at the end, which before...
Absolutely.
So it's kind of very self-conflicted what he was doing. So it's really clever writing.
Yeah, no, definitely. I would say I do agree with that because the Max at the end of the film is not the same as the Max at the beginning of the film. Like he definitely changes. This entire experience changes him fundamentally. And if you think about it, kind of like Vincent is the best thing that ever happened to him in a kind of really weird way.
Yeah.
Like he's not doing anything with his life. He's so meek, and he's so like just a lack of focus, a lack of drive. It's funny because he drives a cab. Just kind of does what he's sort of told. And then, he meets Vincent, and Vincent like injects him with so much confidence and so much belief in himself, and is like, listen, this guy is taking the fuck advantage of you. Like, don't listen, you got to say what you mean. And it's just kind of funny that he kind of, I think, turns him into a better man, but it's also the man that's going to kill him. Do you know what I mean? I don't think he was doing it. I do agree with you. I don't think he's doing this intentionally. It's like, listen.
No.
Yeah, of course not. He's not stupid, but
I'm going to make you more confident to kill me at the end.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right. He's like, I need him to not have all these fucking people breathing down his neck, so that we can just get this shit done. But I think basically he can kill him, because they mentioned some line that there were other witnesses. Mark Ruffalo says, where there was another spree murder where 3 people were killed by a cabbie in the same way, like double shot to the chest and one to the head, and then the cabbie committed suicide, and he was like, this could just be a continuation of that. So he's definitely done this many times. Like picked up a cabbie, gone somewhere, shot some people, and then shot the guy, and then blamed him for the death.
I quite like how the hit on the jazz musician is done, where before we get there, Vincent's like, you know what? We're ahead of schedule. I know a nice jazz place where all the great West Coast jazz players used to play. So you think, oh, okay, Vincent just wants to bond a bit with Max. He's just taking a time out to have a drink. He's got plenty of time. Why would he have to kill a jazz musician? Then when Max and Vincent sit down with Barry Henley, they're laughing and joking about Miles Davis until Vincent mentions Kula Khan and Cardigan. The whole dynamic changes in the room. You're like, oh shit, he's a target. This was part of his schedule the whole time, and it's just quite satisfying how the film tricks you into a false sense of security, even when Vincent asks him a question about Miles Davis, and if he gets it right, he lives, and if he gets it wrong, he dies. Barry answers the question confidently. Nope, pop, he's dead. And again, the actual kill is quite shocking because you think he's got the question right, but he was probably going to kill him anyway. Yeah. But from then on, anybody Vincent meets could be a target. I just really like how that scene was constructed. Like, let's just go for a drink. He's not a target, And
I like that because Vincent really likes jazz. It's crazy because he's like do you like jazz? To Max, he's like, not really. And they listen to the jazz. And you can tell, like, Vincent, even though he's quite stoic, he's kind of smiling to himself, and he's telling him about jazz history as he's playing. He's like, jazz isn't about, it's about being offbeat. It's about being unpredictable, adapting, and he's just kind of, filling his head with all this jazz philosophy. So you're like, man, he likes jazz. And he talks to the waitress, is like, I would like to talk to him. And they're just having a good time, and they're just talking about jazz history and stuff. You can tell Vincent is like, this is almost like meeting a hero, It's really chuffed. And then you're right, it's like a complete 180 where he just says, that's a really good story. I know people in those 2 towns, something in Kulahan, who would love that story. And then just immediately it's like, oh, shit. I just love the jazz guy's reaction. It's like, oh my God, just like his face drops. Yeah. And it just becomes very serious. But you think, like, even when he's having a good time, even when he likes the guy he's going to kill, he'll still kill him like that without any hesitation. Yeah.
Such a cold guy.
So you do get from a feeling, like, even at the start when he meets Max, well, he kind of is trying to feign being kind. You can tell it's sort of put on. But then, he's kind of demanding things from him. He's shouting. He's kind of threatening to kill him. He's very confused when he doesn't, like, Max doesn't do what he says right away. And then he's trying to be nice to Max. So you're like, okay, this alleviates it some. But then he just kills this guy that he's being nice to. So you do get this feeling like he could kill Max, like, at any point. Just literally at any point. He could kill anybody at any second. Yeah. And that's why I think that scene is great. It just really hammers home that this guy is scary.
I love how Vincent and Max's conversation develops before Max crashes the cab. Definitely one of my favorite scenes, where Vincent starts philosophizing again, saying millions of galaxies of hundreds of millions of stars and a speck on one in a blink that is lost in space. The cop, you, me, who notices? Then Max is beginning to have enough with Vincent. He challenges Vincent, saying if someone put a gun to your head and asked, "Who are you really?" you couldn't answer. Tom Cruise is great there because you can tell in his acting that Max has hit a nerve. Then Vincent hits back at Max saying, basically, this limo idea is just a pipe dream and it will never happen. That hits a nerve with Max as well. But the difference is Max admits that Vincent is right and basically refers to Vincent's first point, that we're all insignificant, and uses his philosophy against him by driving really fast and crashes the cab. But I just love that verbal battle there between the two characters. And again, like, you know, Max is using Vincent's philosophy against him in that sense. He was like, all right, if I'm just a speck in the universe and, you know, people mean nothing to me, my life is nothing. All right, I'm just going to crash this fucking cab then, dude. You know, I just love that scene so much.
Yeah, no, I do. And you think even like Vincent is trying to like really, it's like, what the fuck are you doing? He's like, he's very confused about what the hell are you doing? Slow down right now. And he's like, well, if you're saying that all of this means nothing, then what does it matter? What if I speed up? If I crash? If I die now? If I die tomorrow? 10 years from now? Who cares? And then he's like, you know, putting his gun against his head, and he's like, so what are you going to do? Fucking shoot me? We're still going to crash, you know? It's like, it's like, fuck you, Vincent. I do like that where he says like, fuck you, Vincent, and like ducks, you know, and then the car just goes nuts.
I love how the film commits so much screen time to Mark Ruffalo's character, like the detective. You think he's going to be a big player at the end of this story. Yeah. You have this dual storytelling going on with Vincent and Max, you know, a very classic thing that you see in a lot of thrillers. You know, and Ruffalo's character following them a few steps behind. Then after the nightclub scene, he just gets shot by Vincent, and you're like, hang on, he's dead? He's not supposed to die in these types of films. What the hell's going on? You know, it's so unceremonious and no build up or anything. So I just love the commitment in this storyline to basically make a point that people are so insignificant in Vincent's eyes. Also, I quite like the fact that Mark Ruffalo's detective Fanning meets Vincent and Max in the elevator in the hospital. It's just a chance encounter.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a massive misdirect. I just love the commitment in that. Even though it leads to nothing. I'm just like, wow, that's impressive and confident. Yeah. Did you not like that then?
Yeah, well, I think in retrospect, yeah. And it did shock me where you're like, hang on a minute, he's dead. Although, as I said before, because of the framing, I wasn't entirely sure he was shot. But when they kind of, you know, I just thought it was some guy. But again, I think that kind of exemplifies the philosophy of Vincent and his kind of nihilism. Yeah. Is you didn't get a proper look when he came out of the club and Vincent just shot him, because he is just some guy. You know, even though we have been following him, he's just literally one of the hundreds that Vincent has probably smoked. He doesn't give a shit about him. That might have been intentional to just blast him immediately, you know, before you get a proper look at the death. So, yeah, I do think that was surprising because, you know, as you said, you do see that set up in a lot of films where you have, I think there's many films, but one that comes to mind is, you know, when we watched Thelma and Louise, and, you know, it's following Thelma and Louise and the detective. And you get many things like that. You've got the detective who's piecing it together and is, you know, a good guy, a main character, and then you've got the people that are actually involved. There are many films that do that, but very few where the detective, like, dies 2/3 of the way into the film, just dead.
And there's no, like, resolution with the other characters. You don't see those other characters again. You're like, that's done.
Yeah, exactly. All of his friends on the force that he was talking to, and he's trying to piece that the case together with them. You know, he had a lot of dialogue with other guys on the force, and it's just immediately, the stuff with the force, you know, the police department, that stops. The investigation stops. You're not getting any more of that. Yeah, that was quite interesting.
So, lines, there's a lot of cool ones. There's some great, like, dry humor from Vincent. Max says, "You killed him." "No, I shot him. Bullets and the fall killed him."
Yeah, that was good.
Oh yeah, one of the funniest ones is where Vincent has just killed a guy falling from the top window, and and it hits Max's cab on the window, and Max is like, "Just take the cab and I'll just chill." And Vincent says, "You won't tell anybody, right?" Yeah, promise. Get in the fucking car.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah. What was it? I like that one because he's kind of like going ape shit in the car. Like, I can't believe you did this and stuff. There's like 6 billion people on the planet, and you're getting bent out of shape because of one fat guy.
Yeah.
That was kind of cool.
All my prep was in there. You are screwing with my work.
Yeah.
Well, he does that great takedown, and obviously a great running Tom Cruise scene.
Yeah.
Takes him down, then says that. That's great.
Yeah, that was good. That was a good scene.
There's some great lines actually from Javier Bardem, who we'll talk about in acting.
Oh, sorry, does not put Humpty Dumpty back together again. Yeah, that was a good line.
Do you believe in Humpty Dumpty?
Yeah. How about Santa Claus? It's like, no, neither do I, with my children.
My favourite line, though, is actually from Mark Ruffalo when he's trying to work out who this guy is, who they're trying to follow, and he says, "So you're telling me the guy walks into a phone booth and Shazam changes into a meat-eater super assassin? What's he do? Squeeze them in between fares?"
Yeah.
I thought that was great. You got a favourite then?
It's kind of where Max is pretending to be Vincent. Like, at the start, he's not doing a good job. Javier Bardem is like berating the hell out of him. And you can tell, like, this is scary. They could kill him. And then he kind of whispers, "Tell your guy behind me to something like to not touch it, to get his hand off of his fucking gun or something." And he's like, "What did you say?" So, "Tell the guy behind me to keep his hand off his gun before I take it from him and beat his ass to death with it." You're like, okay, Max, all right. That was a good line.
Yeah, that was pretty badass, yeah. Screenplay score, Bowers, what are you going for?
I've got to say, actually, like, in talking about the screenplay, I think I like it a lot more than the directing.
I would agree with that, definitely.
Yeah, not that the directing is atrocious. It's just it's okay. But yeah, the screenplay is actually pretty good. Yeah, I think it's really good, actually. Maybe like okay. In my head, I'm thinking anywhere between a 7.9 to an 8.2. But I'll give it maybe an 8.1.
I love this screenplay, I really do. I love the confidence, the massive misdirect this film does with Mark Ruffalo's character. I think that's genius. And just the philosophy of both these characters, you know, butting heads, of Tom Cruise's nihilism and Jamie Foxx's character's just hopeful optimism, just butting heads. And I just really like it. I think it's really clever in this setting.
They are literally on the other end of the spectrum. You're completely right. He's like... he's so confident that things are going to just work out because, you know, that's how life is. And Tom Cruise, he's like, none of this fucking matters, man. Like, this is all bullshit. And it's really interesting. I do like when they talk about it.
And I love the fact that this film is so tense and so thrilling, and so very few characters in this film as well. You know, the world's not at stake, just a few people are at stake. So I'm going to go quite high. I'm going to go like 9.2 on this. I think it's really great.
That's really good. Okay, I'm gonna like up my score a bit. I think you've convinced me. I won't go quite that high.
Oh, come on, man!
But I'll go like an 8.7, I reckon.
Yes, I've influenced Bowers again. I may win this one. Acting then. I like the scene in the cab where Annie meets Max in his cab near the start, and they're talking about music, and Annie says, "I never had the lungs for wind instruments." Then Max says, "Could have fooled me by the way you were unloading on that cell phone." Jamie Foxx is like, "Yeah, I'm trying out my flirting. Yeah, I think I'm good at this." I got that subtle sense that he's getting a little kick out of this boring job, and just like, you know, this weird like false confidence, if you will, you know, at the start. Whereas his genuine confidence comes through near the end. I thought that was kind of funny, that bit.
Yeah, it does seem like, he's just trying out something in the spur of the moment. But, you know, you do feel like, even though he thinks about her, he has no real intention of calling her again. Yeah, so it was just him trying something out. Yeah, I thought they had a really good chemistry, actually, Jada Smith and Jamie Foxx. It was very believable.
Yeah. I was going to say a controversial joke there, but I'm going to move past it. I think everyone listening knows what I'm talking about, but there we go.
Beautiful head of hair in this.
No, that she has open relationships.
Oh, yes, she does. Yes, she does.
Anyway.
Yeah, entanglements, motherfucker. Entanglements.
Anyway, moving on. But my God, Javier Bardem is intimidating as hell in that one scene he has. Like, the Mexican story he tells Max is very intimidating. After Max tells him he's lost the list, you're like, he could get very angry at any moment. Like, I love Jamie Foxx in that scene too, because at first he's very timid like what we've seen before. When it's his turn to explain what happened, he says, I think you should tell the guy behind me to put this gun away before I take it and beat his ass to death with it, like you said, Bowers. But then saying that, it gives him a massive lift and a weird confidence boost, and he starts to talk to Felix with more impetus and trying to act like Vincent even more, like, and even quoting him with some lines.
Oh yeah,
he says, "Gotta roll with it. Adapt. Darwin. I ching."
Yeah.
You do get the sense that he's doing too much with the attitude at this point, and it could get him killed through the tension. And the tension is still there. It's like, shut up, stop talking, stop.
You're doing it too much. This is too much. Dial it down. I like that scene. That was quite funny. And I should have mentioned that in the screenplay, but I really do like that whole, adapt, survive, Darwin, I ching, but he does lift that off from Vincent.
It was funny.
I like the first time Vincent says that to him, because he's like, what the fuck are you talking about? He also says something really funny. I like where he was like, where he tossed the list. He's like, I picked up a tail. He's like, Felix is federally, and he's like, I don't know, you tell me. That's why I tossed the list. The workups, all of that shit. To protect, in part, your Hermes Faconabali ass or something. Which I don't even know what Hermes Faconabali is. I got no fucking idea. But it's obviously Spanish.
One piece of acting I found really funny, actually, is after the car crash and they're both upside down and Tom Cruise finds something and just starts hitting Jamie Foxx in this really uncomfortable position. Yeah. I just found that quite funny. It's just like, he's not hurting him at all. It's just very petty. Yeah. I just found that quite funny.
Yeah, it's like the sort of stuff you do to your brothers if they told on you or something. No.
Favorite performance, Bowers? Tom Cruise, Jamie Foxx, or Javier Bardem, or Jaden Pickett,
yeah.
or Mark Ruffalo,
Mark Ruffalo. Yeah, I think I'll go with Tom Cruise actually.
Yeah, I think Tom Cruise as well. He's just so intimidating, so fierce in this.
Yeah, he's really intense,
and the grey hair is not distracting.
Right. No. He should wear it more. Actually, I think it suits him.
Acting score, Bowers, what are you going for?
I'll go, I think 8.
Yeah, I would probably go 8s as well. Jamie Foxx and Tom Cruise are definitely top of the game, especially Jamie Foxx, I would say.
They're essentially playing out of their character, do you know what I mean? Like, Jamie Foxx is always somebody that exudes confidence and street smarts, and do you know what I mean? He's always cool. And I think it's really good that he plays this very timid cabbie, and it's very believable. And, Tom Cruise is always, again, like Mr. Action Man or whatever. And he's playing somebody who's just scary. It's just like a very scary dude. So, I think that also helps that they're not even playing really to their strengths, and they still do a really good job.
So I'll go 8.3, I think. All right, let's add up the scores then for Collateral. Collateral gets 49. Exactly. Which is pretty cool. Pretty good. So, Mr. Encyclopedia Man, what is your pick for Tom Cruise films? Or rather, right, we got a subject. Is there a war film in here somewhere?
That's essentially it. There's some battlefield thing.
Oh, sort of a war film, yeah.
Sort of a war film, yeah. Well, I think it's less than 10 minutes in the actual war, isn't it? It's mostly build up to and aftermath of said war. So Born on the 4th of July.
So what did you make of Born on the 4th of July?
Yeah, that was something. Yeah, parts of it were pretty difficult, I think. Yeah, I thought it was quite emotional.
Certainly, Oliver Stone doesn't leave any stone unturned when it comes to political controversy in his movies, and you definitely feel a lot of the Oliver Stoniness in this film for sure. Yeah. So what happens in Born on the 4th of July?
It's basically most of the life of Ron. Yeah, that was it. Ron Kovic. He is a proud American patriot. He's very young. I think he's just finishing high school. He was born on the 4th of July. He's always, looked up to the US military, has a very loving family, has plenty of friends, is very sporty, is very competitive. and he decides when the Marines come to visit his school to join the Marine Corps. So he does that, and you can tell he's, he's almost like that, like stereotypical, just, like patriotic, old apple pie American boy, So very, very religious,
Yeah.
very proud of his country, good grades, all this other stuff. He's just like the perfect kid. Then he goes to war, joins the Marines, goes to war, and things do not go well, because war is terrible. It's absolutely horrible. Kills bunch of innocent people, which is really horrible. It also happens really quick because there's a lot of build up to his life, and then he goes to war. And I was thinking, okay, there's going to be a large chunk of the war, but it's like it's really quick, and how bad war is, it's immediate. It's like they attack the enemy's position, then realize they've killed a bunch of women and children, and they got like one single baby alive, and it's like, what the fuck? Then they have to leave because the enemy's taking over. And then he turns around because, the enemy's everywhere, shooting everywhere. He shoots a guy that just joined, something like a 17-year-old boy who's American. He shoots him by mistake. So you can say, yeah, okay, just on one day, there's a lot that's just gone wrong. This is terrible. And then in another day of combat, he gets shot in the foot, then keeps fighting, and then gets shot in the gut. And that seems to sever his spinal cord or something. And he can't walk. He's dead from the waist down. Can't have children. Then it's a really uncomfortable couple of minutes in the hospital. That was grim. That was really grim.
Yeah.
I think the hospital, all the scenes of the hospital were some of the worst. It's really, really grim. It's just, man, that was hell.
You just don't imagine the hospital being that dirty, and there's even a rat in there. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that was disgusting. Anyway, so a bunch of terrible scenes in the hospital. And then he goes home, but he can't settle down. Like, he keeps getting reminded of the war. There's so many protests against the war. He kind of starts to go against the narrative of why he ended up fighting for the country, for his country. And he's like, none of it doesn't make any sense. I don't know why the hell we were there. He kind of becomes estranged from his family. They kick him out, goes to Mexico. As I said, this is like a lot of his life. And, with a bunch of other veterans who were wounded, and then becomes a war protester, comes back to the US and starts protesting against the war. Yeah, so that's essentially the film.
Yeah, it's pretty hard hitting, especially near the end. I'm not entirely sure everything works, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah, so I did enjoy it. And one thing that did surprise me was kind of the lack of just clear-cut direction in the film. And I don't mean direction. I mean like the script, like where this plot is actually going. And that's what kind of I think surprised me, even just the first couple of minutes of it, where he's a kid playing baseball, and then you're like, okay, then he's having a barbecue, and then he's going to a parade. I'm like, am I watching this entire man's life? And it does feel like what you're watching throughout the whole movie. You're like, even when I describe it, I can't just describe it. He gets wounded and then becomes an anti-war protester, because that doesn't happen until long into the film.
Literally, the anti-war stuff is like the last 20 minutes.
Yeah, essentially, like the last 20 minutes. Each 20-minute chunk, he is doing different things. It is essentially a man living his entire life, and you're watching it on film. And of course, it's very anti-war, because from the, after the first third, when he gets involved in the war, his life goes to hell. But there is no clear A to B.
That's always the problem I have with biopics. If it's not done really well, like Rocket Man, I know it's not a war biopic, but that's a lot of his life, but just done so well. But with this, certainly with biopics, it's always a choice a filmmaker and a writer has to make of like, well, okay, when am I going to start this story and when am I going to end it?
And like, what am I going to leave out? I know it was important for this guy, but does it actually matter? Can I not like cut out some events here? And I do get you right, because you can either, on one hand, like so fictionalize the event so it fits into a narrative that you're doing a kind of disservice to the story, but it makes it easier to digest. You're like, okay, this has a beginning, has a middle, it has an end, it has somewhere it's going, it has acts, and you're like, okay. Or you could just do the man's entire life, and that is respectable, and it's accurate, and it does feel real, but it's like, you do struggle to think, where is this leading? But I suppose that's life, And I did have a lot of moments in the film where I'm like, man, this is terrible for him. Wow, this is a good scene. But I'm like, where are these scenes leading to? You know,
It's really interesting with certainly other biopics of how they approach it. I really like the Steve Jobs one from Danny Boyle. That's basically 3 acts of like the build up and during of his 3 launches of 3 Apple products, and that's it. There's no in between. It's just these preparations for these launches of these products. That's it. Which is still a pretty long film, but there's no like, what was his childhood like and what was his death like? It was just that tiny window, you know, whereas this is a very large window, and I'm not sure, you know, and they're kind of trying to squeeze in a lot here. But let's get right into it then with directing. You know, I quite like the sweet scene where Ronnie runs out of his house in the rain to the prom. There's like a POV shot moving through the crowd and people moving out the way. You know, Ronnie asks Annie for a dance, then they kiss, and it's all very cliched. But then cut to a dark orange sky with a burnt tree with gunfire going off. Then when another Marine is asking Ronnie, can you see the rifles? Can you see them? Then you have this really long lensed camera shot moving quite quickly at times on these wooden huts. And you're like, I don't see any rifles here. And then Ronnie says, yes, sir. You know, then the subtext comes right through just with that one long shot. Yep, they just want to like blow shit up, and you know, and are desperate for action at that stage, because there's certainly a little bit of dialogue before that, like, yeah, we've been waiting on our asses for ages, and they haven't seen any action, and they're just desperate to, you know, just fire off their guns. You know,
I think the mood completely changes because it goes from camaraderie, just a tiny bit of that, and you know, Ron talking about the 17-year-old is like, he's always a confident guy, even just naturally. And he's like, you know, where are you from? And I think he says some southern town or whatever. And he's like, from Georgia or something. And he's like, you know, kids from Georgia, you'll be fine, kid. Nobody dies if they're from Georgia here. And yeah, you have that, you know, oh, I think we see guns and stuff. And then they shoot and then they come in. And I think he's thinking, this is the glory of war. Opens the door and it's just a bunch of innocent people just full of holes. And then close-ups of everybody. You know, I like how frantic it got. It's like, you know, it's going from this person to this person to medic to what the hell did you do to, you know, Jesus Christ. And he's just absolutely terrified. He's like, oh my God.
Yeah, I thought Oliver Stone did a great job there. Like, the camera follows the action so rapidly, moving quicker and quicker to each point of action, and it becomes more jarring as we follow Tom Cruise, you know, with great uses of slow motion. And when a silhouette figure runs right at him in this beautiful shot with the orange sun behind this figure, Ronnie shoots him thinking it's a Viet Cong soldier. But no, it's his own man. And I was fooled too, to be honest.
Yeah.
I thought it was Viet Cong.
Yeah, I thought it was Viet Cong.
But yeah, just great mix of crazy POV shots and slow motion.
You feel like you can see, you know, there's all these bullets rushing away. He falls over. You know, people have been hit, and there's just all this chaos. And yeah, when the guy comes over the dune, you can't see him. You have no idea. And when he shot him, I did think he was Viet Cong. I was like, good on you, Ron. It's your first kill. And then it's like, I think what immediately clues you in is even while it's still slow motion and he's dead on the floor, then another soldier comes up to him, an American one, and he's like, holding him. I was like, why the hell would you do that? And then
and you're like, oh shit.
It just slowly dawns on you and you're like, oh crap. And he walks up there and it's like, oh shit. So you can say it's very believable.
Yeah, if you have some basic knowledge of the Vietnam War, the Viet Cong did use American weapons against the American soldiers. So you can clearly see an American rifle there. So that doesn't really signify that it's actually it is an American soldier. It definitely could be a Viet Cong, you know. I thought that was really well done from Oliver Stone.
Well, actually, you know, I've read some stuff and watched some documentaries on the Vietnam War. Like, there was frequent weapon switching between both sides, so that would be very hard to even tell who even had an American gun, because the Americans would switch them out for Viet Cong guns, and Viet Cong would switch them. So, whose gun is whose? It becomes a muddle. I think even a Viet Cong,
it didn't matter.
It doesn't really matter. They use what fires bullets, you know. A lot of Americans would pick VC weapons because, like, they would be better in the sweat of the jungle, because the heat would sometimes warp American rifles.
I think one word that definitely comes out of this film, which is repeated very often, is confused. This is a confusing war in terms of why they're doing it and in the battle itself. I quite like the differences in the parade scenes. Like the one at the start, everyone's cheering for the World War II veterans in the late 40s. Everyone's cheering for them. You get a glimpse of the veterans jumping because of the firecrackers, but only a little glimpse. But when Ronnie is parading on the 4th of July in the 60s, not everyone is cheering for him coming home. People have just glum faces, and someone even has a middle finger up at him. You see a lot more jumping from crews because of the firecrackers. And when he's on stage and hears the baby crying, he keeps hearing it, and the helicopter sounds come in and overwhelm him as he's trying to do this speech. It's brilliantly done, showing, his trauma through visuals and sound, and the political landscape differences just through sound and visuals, and certainly in comparing those parade scenes. And obviously you have that last one, which is not really a parade, but a kind of similar setup, but it's more of a protest. Yeah. Which is basically the complete opposite of where he started this film.
Yeah, 100%.
But certainly from a directional point, it's really interesting comparing those scenes.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it doesn't match his memory of what it was like on the 4th of July, with the World War II veterans. That doesn't match at all. Even when he was like on his daddy's shoulder, waving at the guys coming in and all that stuff, and pretending to be soldier and stuff. And then when he's through the parade, and you're right, there's firecracker, and you can see he's flinching. He's like, this is really scaring the shit out of me. But he's trying to be happy, and there are people with their middle fingers. There are protesters and hippies, and there's even like an altercation where one of the Marines in formation essentially goes at one of the people in the audience. Like, he's like, he kind of breaks formation because obviously that guy must have said something or done something. But it's when you see the end of that parade thing, he looks at a kid who's on his daddy's shoulders, and he's like pretending to shoot him. He's doing that, pretending to shoot. Yeah, and you can just see like his reaction is like, man, this is horrifying. This is meant to be good. He has good memories of this, but being in it is absolutely horrifying.
I need to point out something that's weird, though. What's with the burgers that they have, holes in the middle? What the fuck is that about? Food abuse. What's going on? Why would you put a hole in a burger?
Bagel burger. I think it's if you're putting it in a bagel. New York bagel, it's got a hole.
No, they didn't put it in a bagel. They had normal buns.
That's true.
No, why the fuck? What are you doing, man? That's a stupid idea.
No. They're just crazy. This is why they lost Vietnam. that is historical fact here.
They were not fed properly. Yeah. I always love to point out food abuse in but there we go.
Yeah, because you're a master chef when you're not doing this.
Yes, of course. My cheese toasties are I just love the little scene where a vet is riding his wheelchair really fast and shouts, "Move aside, motherfucker!" and crashes into another guy in a wheelchair, and they just fall over. That was hilarious. Yeah. I just needed to say that as well. That made me laugh out loud. A much needed moment of levity as well.
Yeah, that was fun.
What's your favourite shot or scene, Venice?
I would say, the most uncomfortable scenes were in the hospital, where you're just like, yeah, this is horrible. Especially when he was like in the gurney upside down, and they kind of forgot they had left him upside down, and the camera just starts with him up. He's upside down on a gun, just like pressing his button to fucking help me
for 2 hours.
He's just shouting his like, "Are you gonna get me the phone?" And he's just kicking off. Like that is horrifying.
And there's just vomit around there on the floor. There's a rat. There's even there's a prostitute at some point. Someone's just having sex.
Yeah, that was heartbreaking because he can't use his stuff. This guy's having sex with a girl there, and the camera just kind of goes over his cubicle or his thing.
And everyone's watching as well.
But it goes over his and then over a couple of people listening, and then to him, he's got to hear this, and you feel heartbroken because you know what he's thinking. It's like, that's never going to happen to me. That's it.
I think for me, my favourite scenes were where Ronnie gets shot. There's some really beautiful shots in there where Ronnie gets shot in the ankle and he flips heel over head in slow motion. Like the slow motion shot of Ronnie firing back his machine gun looked amazing. There's even a longer shot of him, like right before Ronnie gets shot, where the long grass looks so blurry in the foreground that creates this nice like haze in the foreground. The shots of helicopters were really cool, that where the camera follows one as it goes behind some trees and blows up. There's a great long shot just before the gun battle where a helicopter is literally going straight at the camera before pulling up at the last moment. That looked super impressive to me.
Yeah, that was actually an amazing shot. Yeah, I know. I'd agree with that. I completely forgot about that. Yeah, that was incredible. Especially because it was so chaotic that the second battle where he gets like irrevocably injured was so chaotic, and you can't even really see many of the Viet Cong. It's like, it's so bright, and there's just bullets coming from everywhere. You can't see a goddamn thing. You don't even see who shoots him. He's shooting into essentially nothingness, and then he gets. And yeah, that just must have been terrifying. It definitely does have very successfully invoke that fear of they're just everywhere, and it's just,
Certainly, cinematography-wise, this wipes the floor with Collateral for me. Just those Vietnam scenes look so good, so good.
I also think, what was it when he decides to join? Become a protester, and he's at the Nixon's doing a big speech, and they're trying to get into the floor and talk. Yeah. And I actually did really like how that scene is shot, where he's speaking up to the camera and all that sort of stuff, and the camera is sort of looking down at him. In the shot, it's looking down at him, and he's he even pulls himself up to be kind of in front, but the camera is still higher than him. How it's shot. It just feels brave. It feels like these people are towering over him. Everyone's against him now. And he's still trying to, get his words out. And it keeps cutting to them when he's speaking truth, but he feels like he's getting drowned out. You keep seeing the Nixon stuff and people celebrating, and then people calling him traitor and communist and filth, and their cameras on them, and it's so much, and you think, but he's still trying to speak through it. It's like, fuck you guys,
I'll definitely talk more about that scene in screenplay, but certainly from a directional standpoint, it felt like a battle scene. It felt like one of the Vietnam scenes.
It did.
Exactly the same direction.
It felt like proper action. Well, this is cut like it's a fight, but it's just him trying to talk. It's just him trying to speak.
Talk to a journalist.
It's him trying to speak, but it is done like an action scene, and I thought that was good. That was a really good scene.
So, directing score for me... Like, the action scenes are really, really cool, really well done. As I said, beautiful shots in there. Like the silhouetted stuff that you see several times of Ronnie killing Wilson was beautiful. Some of the other scenes, some interesting cutting decisions in the edit, I think. Yeah, I'll go like an 8. I'll go a solid 8. How about you, sir?
I'll go an 8.8.
Right, screenplay then. The opening scenes are fine, but some of the dialogue was just horrible. Just so bad. Like, the family are watching JFK, and his mum says to Ron, "I had a dream, Ronnie, the other night, and you were speaking to a large crowd, and just like him, and you saying great things." I'm like, Jesus Christ, how can you say that with a straight face? Bloody hell. It was just so corny and just... It just felt so false. I did not buy that at all. Certainly in the beginning.
I think also his mother is not the greatest actress. So, I think, right. I don't want to like shit on her, but I don't think she's like the greatest. Yeah. So I'll just say that. I didn't really buy as well.
Well, I thought she was great when Ron is having, that confrontation with his mum, basically the penis speech.
Oh, yeah.
But I thought she was great in that.
I didn't actually think she was that great in that confrontation. Like, I thought she had, obviously it's a great conflict, and I thought Tom Cruise was great in that. But I didn't think much of her performance there. So I suppose that's just where we divide that one. But I do agree. There's a lot of like quite corny lines.
Yeah, certainly the first half hour is very cliched. With the whole prom stuff and asking the girl out. I just felt like you could cut out a lot there.
I think you could cut out so much there. But I think maybe that could be intentional to make this, his high school, he even gets on, well, like, they're having some very corny conversations even about the war, where he's like, don't you want to be a man? You don't want to fight for your country and all this other stuff. And so there's a lot of corny stuff. There's a lot of corny interactions with his parents and that girl, and there's a lot of corniness. But I think that might be intentional. It might be like, look, this is the idyllic life that he was having, and it does seem like over exaggerated how good it is. It does seem like very over scripted. But then afterwards, when it's just he's literally been through hell, you don't get anything like that again. Like he's just having arguments constantly, and nothing is right, and nothing's perfect, and nobody says what he wants them to say. So.
I just felt in those opening scenes they could have got across this very idealistic American hero type ideal a bit more
convincingly,
simpler, or just more concise.
Yeah.
Because some of it was just, I don't know, just a bit unnecessary for me, and it dragged a tad.
Yeah, no, I do agree with that. So essentially, like when it was, I think I just mentioned this when we introduced this, but when it went from he's at the 4th of July festival, which I thought was great, parade, then it's like, he's doing baseball, he's doing these other things, and his sports career, what the fuck is that going to do with the movie? Where he's training to be like wrestling, and then he's wrestling game, and it kept going on, and I'm like, and then he joins the Marines, and then his prom date thing, and then he's having some doubts, and then he talks to his dad, and all this other stuff, and I'm like, my God, you could shave a lot of this off. So I was kind of expecting that maybe you set up his family life in like 10 minutes or whatever, and then you send him off to Vietnam. And I felt like they stuck with his home life a bit longer than was it. It was too much. It was a lot longer than was strictly necessary. You could get almost from the off. He loves his family. He likes that girl. He has great connections at school. He wants to be a better man, and he's very patriotic. You could get that all within the first couple of minutes. You don't need to just keep going through his fucking life until he goes to Vietnam.
Yeah, I don't think you need to establish the fact that Ron is a physical guy through the wrestling. I'm like, you could substitute those scenes by adding more character stuff and relationship stuff between him and his parents and him and his friends. Because there was a really interesting friend where he was like, yeah, I don't want to go to Vietnam. I want to make holes in burgers.
Yeah.
But the opposition there is a really interesting point, and they could have explored that a bit more. Certainly in the the late 50s, that period. So exploring the ideologies there a bit more, but it ended up just being a tad cliche.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah.
But I often find in biopics they are fairly unsatisfying to watch at times, because a lot of the time, like, the filmmakers are trying to cram in way too much, as we kind of said a little bit, and underserve this person's life in particular moments. But I think in this film, it does come under that umbrella, certainly in the beginning of the film. But when we finally get to Vietnam and Ron shoots his own man, Wilson, this heart-wrenching moment sticks with Ron throughout a lot of the film. And in the fact that he can't bring himself to tell anybody, even when he's at his lowest point in Mexico, and Willem Dafoe's character questions whether Ron even fought in the war itself. And you combine that with the political discourse that a lot of people are against the war. Ron can't even bring himself to tell this guy. But when Ron finally tells the Wilson family, it's really heartbreaking to watch. It's such a great scene there, brilliantly performed by all the actors in that scene. But when his mother says, "We understand, Ron, the pain you're going through," it's such a powerful moment, and a huge turning point for Ron to finally let go and tell himself that this war was wrong, and to let go of this American war hero ideal like he grew up on. I just felt that was so powerful. In some ways, I do like the length of the film, the fact that he's got this huge burden on his shoulders that I have not told anyone that I shot my own man. I like that commitment that they dragged that out, because I think if you reveal that scene too early, it's not going to work.
Yeah, definitely. Does he even tell his other war buddy when they're discussing? Because I thought that was interesting.
Nope.
Yeah, he doesn't even... And they're telling some really dark shit to each other. And it was like, killed children. And he even says when he got shot, just the floor went out from under me, and now I can't have kids. I can't. And it gets really dark, and they're sharing all that stuff. But I don't even think then he even says, "I shot one of my own side."
Yeah. At that moment, he still can't bring himself to tell a fellow veteran,
Yeah, and I do think that definitely makes the scene towards the end, and it's a great place to put it towards the end, where he does finally fess up that those are the only people he's told, that guy's parents, and that does definitely makes it feel more impactful. Wouldn't have that impact if he's just telling everybody.
I found the police attack on the university building against the protesters really quite impactful, and I thought Oliver Stone was going for the same style of like chaos directing with the scenes of Vietnam, but the scene just cuts really jarringly to this bar scene with guitar music.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Yeah, because it's when the tear gas is being launched and people are getting beaten, and then he can't find the girl, and then shouts, and then it immediately cuts. You're like, my God, that was just getting into it. You literally just started this thing.
Yeah. I feel like Oliver Stone was trying to squeeze in as much as he can, which was a shame. But when I got to the end of the film, I thought, no, Oliver Stone was saving these riot action scenes for the end, for our last parade scene, where Ron and hundreds of other Vietnam veterans are holding flags saying, Vietnam veterans say no to war. That second from last scene that starts off as a parade then develops into a political battle scene, as I kind of said before, at Nixon's celebration of winning 4 more years as president. It's probably like the most emotionally effective battle scene in the movie, where someone literally spits on Ron while he's talking to a journalist. Like the guy who's pushing his wheelchair is an undercover cop and tries to arrest him. I was like, Jesus Christ, that was insane. I found the verbal and visual violence at the end quite impactful, because at this point I thought, no, we're not going to get like another moment that was going to hit so hard emotionally, but it did. I did not see that coming, really. I thought, we've had the riot scene cut a little bit early. That's disappointing, but no, I didn't think we were going to get another one. Like, holy and it was pretty brutal.
It was, yeah. Yeah, and especially like they throw him out of his chair and they're trying to like cuff him while he's on the floor, and he's like, I'm paralyzed. They're like, stand up. I'm fucking paralyzed. And they were dragging his legs across the floor. And you just got all of it was absolute chaos. Yeah, that was a great scene, because you're like, man, this is madness. But yeah, you're right. It was like a full on battle.
I mean, did you see that last scene coming? Were you not expecting such an emotional punch at the end?
No, I wasn't expecting that. I definitely feel like maybe the film should have ended with that, or at the very least when he's being dressed up to give his speech. I don't know. Maybe hear some of that. I'm not exactly sure, but I do feel like that was so high octane and really empowering that even though he's crippled with all these a bunch of other crippled guys and stuff, he is going to make them hear him. And even though they're beating the hell out of him, they're marching on through. And then it cuts to, when that's done, he's going to speak on live TV. And I do like, the flashback that, I don't like the scene, but the flashback that his mother said, he's going to be on TV one day, people will hear him, and he is going for that. But I do feel that slightly undercuts the feeling of essentially fighting, against force and trying to be heard. And I do feel maybe it should have ended there. Even though I do like the scene afterwards, it just feels like a bit of a dip.
Yeah, I feel like this film has a lot of endings, to be honest. It could have ended even after he admits to Wilson's family that he killed him. You could end it there. I don't see why he can't.
Yeah, that's true. And that would be a high. You could just end there, yeah.
Lines? Got any good ones?
Oh, yeah.
Purgatory, where the motherfucker Purgatory.
Oh, I was actually going to mention that one.
Where the motherfucking devil at?
I was going to mention that one, yeah, because he, that black guy, that immediately came onto my corner as soon as it came on. That scene, yeah, he was like, "This country is hard as hell. It is hell." He goes, "Or it's purgatory. Where's the motherfucking devil at?" Yeah, that was good.
One of my favorite ones. Why don't you stick your head up my ass and see what the problem is?
Yeah, I like. There was it's this really strange scene where basically him and Willem Dafoe, they get kicked out of that brothel, and then they get kicked out of the taxi because they're abusing the taxi driver, Willem Dafoe.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Yeah, I bet you didn't even fight no more." He's like, "What the?" And they're just going at each other. He goes, "I killed kids. I bet you didn't kill kids." He said, "Maybe I have killed kids. Maybe I've killed more kids than you have." Just like, it's really grim, but
you're like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's really fucking grim.
Because I thought at that moment he's going to tell Willem Dafoe that he shot his own man. You know, I really thought he was going to tell him in that moment.
Yeah.
They say it's a sin in church if you play with your penis.
Yeah.
I just wish I could. Penis, mom! Big fucking erect penis, mom! If you don't have it in the hips, buddy, you better have it in the lips. From Willem Dafoe, that was a good one.
Yeah, that was a good one. So I'm gonna read this full one out because I thought this was great. Okay. So, but it is when he was, talking to his mum and that whole argument after he got drunk.
Penis.
Yeah, that whole argument. But there was one thing I really like. His father is like, Ron, come on now, you've made your point. He goes, no, I didn't make my point. Tell her, Dad. They're killing everybody now. It's all falling apart, Mum. King, Kennedy, Kent State. We all lost the war, Mum. Fucking communism won. It's all for nothing. Tell her, Dad, it's all a lie. Tell her God is as dead as my legs. There's no God and there's no country. It's just me in this wheelchair forever. I was like, that I think by far is my favorite full quote, because it's like, especially God is as dead as my legs. I think this is also where he doesn't believe in God anymore. He's like, no God would allow this. It's a really good scene.
Yeah, I guess for me, I don't know whether they fully established enough that he was very religious. His parents were. Yeah. His mum was. But I'm not. I didn't get a strong enough sense that he was very religious, like his parents.
Yeah, so I think they do have him just before he gets sent off. Well, no, actually, I think it's just before he runs to the dance. He prays to Jesus.
Oh yeah, he does. Yeah, I've got that scene. So maybe not. Forget what I just said.
Yeah, I'll forget what you said. Yeah. Although that said, as I wouldn't be surprised, because as we were talking about, his early life, way too much is touched upon, so you're not gonna remember everything.
Yeah,
that's why I think it should have been more concise, because then if you have that scene of him praying, it's going to stick out more rather than have scenes of him wrestling. Why? I don't know.
My favorite line is when Ronnie and William Dafoe's character are on the floor after they kind of just had that weird fighting match in their wheelchairs in Mexico. And Ron says, "We had a town once, Charlie. You had a mother and father. Things that made sense. You remember things that made sense? Things that we could count on before we all got so lost." I just felt like certainly in that moment, that's the lowest of the low for him. And just nothing makes sense for him at this point in his life. And it's just definitely echoes a lot of what the political situation was at that time in America. Just nothing made sense. We're going 13,000 miles around the world to fight a war that's
got nothing to do with us.
Weird, I don't want to get too much into the politics of it, but that line I really enjoyed. Just summed up the kind of political situation. So screenplay score for me, the end, certainly those last few scenes, yes, it could have ended at any point, but I enjoyed all three of those endings. It's just the beginning. It takes a while to get going. All the Vietnam stuff was really well written. So I'll go with a 7.8.
Yeah, okay. So I think it would be much, much higher if you did some trimming. And I think a lot of the stuff when he's younger, you could trim so much of that down. Another section I would trim would be the stuff in Mexico. I don't think some of that was entirely necessary.
Yeah.
So, I know he's trying to feel better about himself, and you do get this sense him with these other wounded veterans, he is kind of recovering a bit. Not really, but it gives him some perspective. It is better than America until when it's not, when he realizes, this still follows him even here. But I think also some of that kind of veered on a little long. I think just those two sections, if you just did some creative, just chipping away.
Scene mashups.
Yeah, I really do think so, because I think it's because some scenes are kind of redundant. So when he's in Mexico, he has, conversations with Willem Dafoe about the war, and he's talking about the war and stuff. And then he has he's with a prostitute at one point. And I thought that was because he can't actually do anything. So she kind of puts this performance. It's very weird, and I do like at the end of that sex scene, he just hugs her. He's just holding her. Because it's she's doing all this because he feels like nobody's actually going to have a relationship with him because it doesn't work, but he's actually finally on. But you have other things with him with another prostitute, or seeing that first prostitute again. It's like you don't really need that now. You don't need them constantly looking for whores. Now you've just sort of you've set that up. You can kind of move on from that, right? I get he was doing a lot of whores, but you don't have to keep showing it. Yeah. So I think you can just do some slicing down. So I think because of that, if it was edited just tighter, that the story was tighter, for me, I think there's so much good in this. There's so many good scenes that I would give it a huge score. But because it feels like it meanders a bit too much. Yeah, maybe like a 7.8 or something.
Okay. Right. Acting then. I found the acting very intriguing when Tom Cruise is talking to his parents about going to Vietnam, that he's always wanted this, and that he'll die there if he has to. His parents just look at each other and don't really react. Then his father says, "Not a nice night for the prom." I'm like, did you not hear what your son just said? It's like they don't believe him or don't want to believe him in that moment. It was just kind of like, are you like deaf at the moment? What the hell? I had quite a strong reaction there. I'm like, hello?
Yeah, I know. You're like, this is a very serious thing.
Your son is literally telling you he's willing to give his life in a war.
Yeah, exactly. And they just completely, brush it off.
I really liked Tom Cruise's performance when he's trying to tell his superior officer that he killed Wilson. The only person he really tells, and obviously the officer covers it up. And there's this glaze over his eyes, like he's still trying to process what happened and still in shock, really. And I've never really seen Tom Cruise like that before. It's just this glazed, shocked look of just like, I think I killed him, sir. Again, a very impactful performance there from Tom Cruise early in the film.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And then certainly from then on, there's this kind of really great acting arc in his performance from Tom Cruise of him emotionally going downhill. Like, I really like the scene where Tom Cruise is in a bar and he's arguing with a guy that calls him a traitor, and he tries to grab his coat and hit him with a cue. Then when it's broken up by his friends, Cruise almost immediately hits on a young girl, and it's like Ronnie is really struggling to cope with the emotional impact of the upheaval against the war in Vietnam, doing weird things like that. It's definitely the start of him feeling so lost in this world in America.
Yeah, I think one thing that was interesting is where he finally meets that girl again, and they go for a drink and stuff, and he's trying to like just essentially carry on from that moment from before, as if things are going to just kind of be the same. And you can tell he, even though he's got a smile on his face, you can tell he feels uncomfortable. Like, the whole thing is very uncomfortable. And then when they really do start talking about, do you remember the prom? Do you remember all that? And he's getting more comfortable. So you're like, okay, he's like pretending to be comfortable. He feels like he's actually getting into it. He's talking to her. And then she starts going like, this war is evil. And, like the My Lai massacre and why are we there? And you can see he's trying to like, still have that uppity, like be on her page, but you can feel like he's just thinking like, what the hell? Do you know what I mean? Like, it feels like a gut punch for him. He's like, I almost died there, and like I killed there. Can't be for nothing. And this girl that he likes is telling him it's for nothing. And you do get this kind of conflicted look on his face of like, I like her, but this bitch is, what is she saying? And I quite like that. That was very facial.
Yeah, it's a great performance from Tom Cruise of just confusion. It was like, hang on, what? He's still. I feel like he does a brilliant job of just trying to process his different political viewpoints of how he changes. It's just a great performance there from Tom Cruise, going from this, idealistic war hero type, I'm fighting for America. This is the right thing to do. We've never lost a war. We'll always win every war we're in. And then like, why are we fighting this war?
Yeah.
Why are loads of people dying?
Yeah. And I do think it was quite believable because it's like, it's over time, and it does feel believable that he would be so vehemently anti-war. He's essentially like the guys that he was taking the piss out of when he was in the army. Well, even before he was in the army, where he's like, they're burning our flag now. What the fuck is wrong with these people? Evil communist traitors. Like, have they any idea what we're doing here? Until the end, he is that guy. And, he's so far on the other extreme, but it does feel believable, his change. It's like I fully support this too. I'm having some doubts about this too. Maybe, I don't know, to like, no, this was wrong, to, gun ho, this is evil, we need to stop this. That definitely felt believable.
I think the scene where Ronnie basically breaks emotionally about halfway through, I would say, after the bar scene, is pretty incredible and very sad to watch from all the actors, Tom Cruise, Carolina Carver and Raymond Barry, who plays his parents, but especially from Cruise, though, he's just really goes for it with rage. And it's definitely a turning point for Ronnie when he doesn't know what to do with himself now and feels very lost at this point. And I think my favorite part is when all the shouting stops and his dad puts him to bed and Ronnie says, "Who's going to love me, Dad? Who's going to love me?" It really breaks your heart, the performance from Cruise. He's saying this through floods of tears at this moment. It's like, bloody hell, this is... because at this moment, his mum literally disowns him. Like, no, you're leaving,
Yeah.
Like, fucking hell.
Yeah.
It's insane.
And it's terrible because his dad puts him to bed and it's just like, I don't know what to do. You might, I think you need to leave, And you can tell he's got a really great relationship with his dad. He doesn't want to shout, but he's like, I just don't know what to do with you, man. And that was pretty sad.
Yeah.
I also really like Willem Dafoe.
Yeah.
I love Willem Dafoe, whatever. And I think when you even first see him, he's just stereotypical kind of, manic Willem Dafoe, just really cool, but kind of off his head. Yeah, I like when Willem Dafoe was introduced.
I just love that fight they have when they're both in their wheelchairs when they're stranded on that Mexican road.
Yeah, that was fun. Oh, because it didn't go from like they're shouting at each other and arguing to spitting. Like he spits at him. They're just spitting at each other to like they're slapping each other. So they pull each other out of the damn things and they're like hitting each other. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's the thing. It's really sad as well, but kind of funny.
Yeah.
But I think it's definitely intentionally supposed to be funny, like of how ridiculous their situation is and like how America have just completely let down these people.
Yeah. No, but I definitely like that when they've essentially just, they fought each other and they're just fucking laying down and, that taxi pulls up and stuff. And Tom is like, and they're just so done. They're just laying down. And even Willem Dafoe says, just fuck you. And he's like, I thought that was pretty emotional. And Tom's just like, you have no idea. You really have no idea what I've seen.
Favorite performance?
Yeah, I don't think it's uncontroversial. It's Tom Cruise, obviously.
Yeah, Tom Cruise, yeah.
Yeah.
He's practically in every scene. But yeah, Willem Dafoe is really cool.
Well, yeah, I would say, again, my second is Willem Dafoe, which is crazy because he's not in the film that much, but I fucking love Willem Dafoe. And he really goes for it.
Acting score for me... Yeah, it's really impressive. I'm not sure about his moustache at sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not sure about that. Looks pretty dodgy to me.
Yeah. Looks better with white hair than with a moustache.
So certainly a lot of the aging up stuff isn't great.
Yeah, no, I kind of agree with that. Yeah.
But I don't think you would put that in acting.
No. That's more like, costume, production design, directing, that stuff. Yeah, a lot of that looks definitely like their wigs and their stuff just put onto his face. So that's a bit weird, but
yeah, certainly for that acting performance alone, where Tom Cruise is saying that he killed Wilson to Wilson's family, that was impressive. So I'll go like an 8.6 for me. How about you, sir?
Even just based on Tom Cruise, you just exclude everybody, I would still give it a 9.
Nice.
Yeah, I think I'll give it a 9.
Cool. Right, let's add up the scores then for Born on the 4th of July. When I think of that title, I just want to sing Bruce Springsteen, Born in the USA.
Born in the USA.
Is it him? I'm not sure, but I like that song.
It is an incredible song.
Right, let's add up the scores. Born on the 4th of July gets 50 points. Exactly. So it wins by 1 point.
Wow, that's mad.
Against Collateral, that gets 49 points. To be honest, I'm fairly happy with that. I think the story and the performances are really good. I mean, I do love Collateral, certainly the script.
Yeah.
I just really wish it was filmed on film, but
yeah, fair enough.
So I'm not too displeased.
And then conversely, I really like the filming of and the acting in Born on the 4th of July, but I just feel the script meanders too much. So I think like the script is stronger in Collateral than it is in. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a switch.
Yeah. But sometimes you can't beat like a true story, you know.
Yeah.
There's only one point. Next week as a pretty humongous movie, and that humongous movie contains ginormous dinosaurs, and that movie is Jurassic World Dominion is out. So, of course, yes, you've guessed it, we're doing dinosaur films. So that'll be a fun one. And hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll have guests for that one from the Anorak Oasis pod.
Hopefully it's not just going to be Jurassic Park. I think we could just pick Jurassic Park films, right? Yeah.
Possibly. There are other ones out there.
Deep in the mists of time.
But yeah, that'll be a lot of fun. So tune in for that one.
Yeah.
Thanks, Boaz. You can stop shouting penis now. Even it's mainly been me shouting penis today.
It has been you. Yes. You're projecting.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Penis! That's it for this week's pod. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. If you would like to find out more about the podcast or suggest future topics for us to discuss related to upcoming releases, let us know on Instagram at Film vs. Film Podcast and on Twitter at FVF_podcast. Remember, please subscribe. Pod signing off.